I want to take you back to 2016. Prank channels are still prominent, people like Filthy Frank and Max Mofa were still making fever dream type content that enthralled millions. People like Leafy's Here and Luna were the head of the commentary movement, and most importantly, YouTube felt real. Or at least that's what everybody's saying now. I've seen so many people coming out with videos in the past couple of months saying that 2016 was the prime of YouTubers being able to express themselves authentically. Specifically Willie Mac's video where he proclaims Leafy the last true YouTuber. And in a way, I do agree with them. The two waves of adpocalypse coming through in the past 4 years or so has definitely limited vulgarity and super out there content that has essentially driven the Shrimpson boys either off the platform or onto much different content. Except for Dull and Dark, he's still doing his thing. So on the one hand, the sentiment that is being portrayed is a pretty understandable thing. In fact, if it were the case, I would be pretty depressed about that, especially considering that I'm not really the biggest Leafy fan. So putting all of my A's in that basket isn't particularly desirable. But luckily, that's not the case, at least not to my knowledge. In fact, I'd argue that there is one creator out there who's bringing around a renaissance of 2016 YouTube boundary pushing with a more Gen Z twist on it. And his name is Jschlatt. I know what you're thinking, this is a film and video game video essay channel? Who or what is a Jschlatt? Well, he's a YouTuber and Twitch streamer who basically got started by playing Minecraft with a bunch of his friends on a server entitled SMP Live, where everyone on the server was required to stream, and from which a fair amount of people attribute the repopularization of Minecraft to. But eventually, after everyone on the server benefited tremendously from its existence, the server ran its course. And since then, Jschlatt has taken up, after taking a small break from most things, playing Wii games weekly on his channel, as well as games like Five Nights at Freddy's. Also, he's a part of the collective named Lunch Club, starring other creators in the SMP realm like Call Me Carson and C-Scoop that have their own group channel with relatively regular videos. Okay, now that the backstory is out the window, it's time to get down to what the title of this implies. Jschlatt is one of the pioneers of the second wave of the, as they are called, real YouTubers. Even though he isn't even remotely in the same genre, but in a way he is reinventing it just a bit. The first point that I would like to bring up is the Schleck Characters. If you have ever seen a single video of him, it is very well likely that you have seen one of his many distinguishable personas. During his time on SMP, he often assumed the face of a greedy and cold-hearted businessman who had a knack for scamming people through the cryptocurrency known as Schleck coin. At this point, me discussing this in such a serious manner is probably turning a lot of people off, but I promise, this is going somewhere. On the hit Twitch show The Rochler, Jschlatt has played both a devout Catholic man and a gay man on 2 separate occasions. And here's the real kicker. There are some people out there that don't even know that they're characters. There are countless comments out there saying, I still respect Jschlatt if he is a churchman, or I think that Jschlatt was coming out here due to X or Y. Now, although I'm pretty sure of my assertion that he's not any of the aforementioned things, I have to say that there's no disrespect meant towards him if he is. And that is where the genius comes in. Even though I consider myself pretty perceptive and able to read tells, also because of the current climate and culture that we live in, I still feel a need to preemptively apologize due to the small sliver of possibility that any of his characters have a level of truth to them. Do you all realize how insane that is? Do you realize how good you have to be at a character to convince at least hundreds of people that a character you are doing is real? Especially when he is known for doing several different characters? What? There are multiple videos in a series called Jschlatt Has Controversial Opinions, where Jschlatt says a bunch of anti-Obama statements and spouts off a bunch of Republican viewpoints. Now, whether or not this is a joke doesn't matter. Although I am almost 100% sure this one is just a character, what does matter is the comment section, where there are countless arguments happening between Democrats and Republicans about how they either hope it's a joke or how people like us get crucified constantly and eventually devolves into an actual political debate. Do you understand how powerful a man is when he's able to play a character and act as a catalyst sparking a debate between 2 different parties through a bunch of silly one-liners? The answer is very. My question would now be, who in the past played a character that sparked debates and brought up controversial topics in hilarious ways? That's right, none other than the man himself, Filthy Frank. And although there are some similarities between Jschlatt and Frank to be made, there are a lot of important distinctions to be made. 1. Nothing Jschlatt has ever said is even remotely as offensive as the persona of Frank. But in contrast, George has consistently let his audience know that Frank is a character that nobody should ever replicate and represents the actual scum of Earth. Everything that you are not supposed to be. Meanwhile, Jschlatt has never specifically differentiated between a character trait being a bit or real. Although he does have a bit of a tell, either a millisecond of laughter or smiling before getting completely into character, which is obviously easier to see with his face cam on, there's still no concrete proof of him actually being one way or the other. This is where the Gen Z humor starts to come into play. One of the bigger differences is that Frank and his cohorts are all millennials, while Jschlatt is a part of Gen Z. At least from what I have observed, a big part of millennial humor is being blatantly offensive, saying something so outrageous that there's no plausible way someone could think that way or have the audacity to say it. That is why it was such a commonplace for white people in 2016 YouTube to say the N-word and have their audience think it is absolutely hilarious. For the record, I hate the whole let's say the N-word for comedy thing, but I understand the comedic implications behind it. However, as more Gen Z humor has hit the mainstream of meme culture, it has been more surreal and relies heavily on subversion. And, I mean, what's more surreal than a dude on the internet who constantly shifts his persona in dramatically different directions with haunting accuracy, while subverting expectations every time he flips to a different persona, and the whole time, there are people who don't know which parts are real, which parts are fake, and which parts are incorporating parts of Jschlatt's reality in a joke-based form. It's those subtle nuances that can be expanded on in so many ways that really highlight the brilliance of the humor through characterization that Jschlatt utilizes. The constant attribute of Jschlatt that led me to draw this comparison in the first place is that he's willing to completely cross the line of being offensive for the sake of some amazing comedy. The best recent example of this is during the video, The God of Wee Babysitting, where he gets so frustrated at the stuffed baby that he bought expressly for that video, he ends up hanging him from a ceiling for a good portion of said video. This is something that during the current climate of YouTube, a lot of creators would shy away from doing because of fear of demonetization, among many other things. Yet, Jschlatt does it unabashedly. He leaves it hanging from a fan, unblurred, and even directly messes with it throughout the rest of the video. In fact, his cojones are so big that he's even made it a recurring character on his channel named Yuto, where the constant gag is him throwing the baby against a wall, which, although less offensive than the previous example, can still be viewed as pretty offensive. It can also be pretty risky in the midst of the toxicity of peak cancel culture, where the other person mentioned in this video, George, was recently canceled on Twitter for essentially being Filthy Frank, even though he has a disclaimer where he says his act is complete satire. Alas, back in 2016, that wasn't even a thought floating around in one's head, back when unbridled creativity was always permitted on the platform. And I guess that's why I appreciate Jschlatt so much. In a landscape of people actively adjusting their content in order to maintain their good graces with YouTube, Jschlatt takes that expectation and shatters it swiftly. He makes the jokes that people are scared to, all the while having his own unique style of comedic timing and an overload of satire. So, in a way, he's simultaneously bringing back the atmosphere of 2016 YouTube, while tinkering it to, if I'm allowed to include my personal opinion, make it even more refined and quippy. Now, all of that is great, and the whole analytical bull is pretty interesting to go into, but there's one factor about him that contributes to his genius more than anything else I have mentioned, and that is the weekly slap. This is a channel where Jschlatt plays Call of Duty and answers people's pretty personal questions. And here's why this is genius. It's right there. As much as Jschlatt is constantly playing characters in the majority of videos he makes, and people are manically questioning what about him is real, he has created a small haven where people can get a look into his authentic self, his personal views on things, and get advice that can help most people between the ages of 14 and 24 with their everyday life. The sad fact about the internet generation is that most of us are chronically depressed and aimlessly lost in the world around us. Jschlatt addresses this by providing both an outlet for humor and an outlet for sadness and worry. He has brought back the humor that most of us have grown up watching, the edgy internet type of humor, while also providing a place to drop all the jokes and bare oneself to their emotions in as healthy a way as most of us know how to do. That is the true genius of Jschlatt. Cheers.
There isn't. There isn't a reason. You recognize the problem, fix it. All right. There's still, of course, there's still going to be moments when you slip up, when you step over the line, and that's fine, right? As long as you realize when you do it and rectify the situation afterwards. And look, try talking to your friends if this is really, if this is really eating you up. Talk to them and say that, hey, I'm kind of a dick, right? I realize that, and it's something I'm going to try and work on. But if you say that, you better fucking hold yourself to it, right? They better hold you to it. I'm not saying you got to go around town flogging yourself in the public square wearing one of those plague doctor masks, but see where you screwed up. Try and fix the situation, if for no other reason than just to make yourself feel somewhat less bad about it. Because what's probably holding you back from making these changes that you want is how bad you feel. Take the steps that are going to get yourself into a better mindset and just work on yourself.
All right, that's the video. That's it. Jschlatt is one of my favorite YouTubers at the current moment, probably of all time, and I just enjoy watching him. From what I've gathered, he seems like a genuinely intelligent and a dude that's humble and has his head on his shoulders. This was an interesting video. I know I'm rambling. Go check out our other videos. Like the video if you liked it. If Jschlatt is watching this, shout out to you, my guy. Just shout out to you, just in general. I don't know. That's it. Goodbye.